Good morning. This is Joe, and welcome to our live webinar. Our series is called The Operator's Edge. Today's topic is converting free-to-play sports to real money gaming. We'll have Daniel Kostelski, our CEO, and Jason Foster, our head of iGaming, participating and leading us through this conversation. Just real quick, The Operator's Edge is our monthly third Thursday live webinar series where we share data and experiences to help you build, engage, and monetize your sports betting customer base. So with that, I will turn it over to Daniel Kostelski, who will talk about some of the big things that happened this week.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate that. It certainly has been a big week. And the first and foremost would be it's the big 1-year anniversary for the repeal of PASPA. Happened on the Supreme Court, they heard the case in December of 2017. When was there going to be a decision, and it came down on May the 14th. Now, over the last 12 months, plenty has happened around states. Operators, leagues are certainly speaking a slightly different language. Media companies are changing, and we'll talk a lot about that over the next 15 to 20 minutes. But I just want to talk real quickly about speed. If you think that this is going slowly, 12 months later, I had it all put into perspective from a couple of different groups that I met at a conference coming up, and that was the iLottery industry, and then the online gaming industry, where it's online casino, and online poker. And both of those two industries are certainly, I think, flabbergasted at how fast the rollout of sports betting has happened across the United States. So yeah, it's going pretty quick, and it's certainly exciting times. The next 12 months will certainly be interesting. As I mentioned, there's been quite a few conferences over the past couple of weeks, or the probably a month and a half. ICE from London, the behemoth that it is over in London in February, has now come to North America, and it was in Boston this past week. Kicking off with a really interesting Investors Day, where they brought a bunch of investors to meet and discuss the industry, where the opportunities are, a lot of the M&A that's going on right now. And then it was followed up by 2 days of exhibitions, and then really interesting panels and speaking engagements, where we heard team owners, leagues, obviously all the operators, and some of the current events that are happening and how it's shaping the industry. And all of that was certainly topped off by Sugar Ray Leonard, who was there as well. Last but certainly not least, and number 3, is our birthday. So we turned 3 tomorrow, and when we started out Chalkline, it was really around how we can help operators and media, brands identify, engage with that really valuable sports bettor. And we were talking about that in 2016. Had clients in Europe and Africa, and had some early adopters in the media industry here in the United States. But certainly over the past 12 months, the conversation that I have around the value of that sports bettor has never been more intense. We've got a bunch of people on this webinar, and I've probably met quite a few of you at the conferences over the past couple of years. Just want to thank everybody for your support, and even on this particular webinar. We started these webinars a little while back in January, just to provide some information and entertainment around, or education around the industry, and some of the things that we do and some of the things that we see. And it's great to see a lot of you guys on the webinar, and certainly appreciate all of your support. We just went over about 4,000 picks, so we are certainly gaining some steam, and the next year is going to be a lot of fun for us. So I'm going to go over a real quick industry update, and it's funny. I see this slide in a lot of people's presentations, and the disclaimer is, but things have changed, and things are always changing around this particular slide. And that's the beauty, and that was the speed that I had talked about. Just maybe to summarize it though, 8 states legal. That's about 10% of the adult population currently has access to go and bet on sports in their particular state. There's a whole wave of new states that are coming on board: Iowa, Indiana, Montana, Tennessee, Arkansas, ones that have now been signed into law and will be rolling out regulations and then taking applications for sports betting. So that's going to be another probably 10%. And then we've got states like New York and Louisiana, Illinois that are thereabouts. So here in a pretty short space of time, it's going to be close to 25% of the adult population in America that's going to have access in their particular state. Now, it's not maybe going to be exactly how we all saw it with the with mobile being being front and foremost, but it will certainly be accessible to them. Another really interesting update was the announcements of the Stars Group and Fox Sports, and they're partnering to create Fox Bet. So Fox is buying 5% of the Stars Group, with another option to buy 50%. In I think it's about 10 years time. Really, this looks a lot like Sky's relationship with Sky Bet. Um, and creating kind of a lead gen for Sky Bet. And there's a lot of aspects of this that is interesting. The first, probably the most important for us, was what is one of the first things that they're going to do under this Fox Bet umbrella. Well, it's going to be a nationwide free-to-play game. And they're going to be awarding cash prizes to players who correctly predict the outcomes of sports. Couldn't have built, or created this press release any better ourselves at Chalkline, and we certainly buy into that as a great first step for those companies that are trying to figure out what to do right now, maybe before the legalization comes to fruition. So let's get into converting the free play sports into real money games. Um, it's really it's really about the 30 million Americans and this number kind of gets bandied about, and there's a whole lot more that the AGA talks about, and they put them into various segments, but there's about 30 million Americans that they're going to place their first legal bet. So just bear that in mind, and also just bear in mind that I think that there's a pretty high intimidation factor, and I'll talk a lot about that a little later, around people going to a mobile site and signing up. And so they usually come on 10, 15, 20 times before they actually complete that sign up. And then the next hurdle is, how do you get them to deposit? With only 40 to 60% of the customers, and these are some questions and comments that I've been getting in the industry over the past couple of months. What are they looking at from a deposit rate of signups? So some of them are a little less than this, but certainly it's not a foregone conclusion that you're able to just convert everybody that comes to your website or downloads your app into a new depositing customer. So this is really from the operator's perspective, and we're going to talk about free to play, fill in the top of the funnel, and why that is valuable. Here's a great example on the engagement side, where we offered a free to play game for a casino to convert social players and their social casino into free to play sports, and just offering a slightly different type of social gaming. At Tropicana, converting unknown patrons, people just frequented the various bars around Tropicana, getting email addresses and mobile numbers in the lead up to the launch of their sports book. And it's not just operators that are trying to engage with the sports bettor. The AFL has not been shy about their want and their desire to be intimately engaged with gaming. They've got a hashtag which is Bet on Us. and they talked to us a few months back and said, listen, we'd really like your free-to-play games and your educational tools, to come in and provide us with free-to-play games around the AFL. So we do that, and we're trading. A lot of those games, almost all of those games, are live, so you can still predict the outcome of the game, in the second quarter, halftime, or third quarter. And the NBA has been getting in on this as well. They did a deal with MGM in October, and they launched a preseason, over and under number of wins game. But they've continued that up on their website, again, trying to engage with and entertain the sports bettors and their fans. So it's not just the operators; it's media companies like Fox, and now it's leagues and teams that are getting involved as well. And a lot of this is really about how, once you're engaging with people, how are you educating them, and what are you learning about these customers as well. And that's really, this is actually the kind of the meat and the potatoes of what we talk about. If you've heard me speak at any of the conferences, or if you've talked to me about this particular topic, it's really about what do you learn when you engage. And a good example of that is Bet Chicago, where we do bring in, every sport and every market, into our platform to create free-to-play games around about anything. But it's really about, identifying, players. What's their favorite sport? What are teams? What are players that they're, passionate about? Where are they located, and what are some of the motivations that they have in building these personas, on behalf of our customers. And that's the beauty of what we do on the free to play side, prior to pushing them over to place that wager. And the more information that we understand, during this process, the more personalized the marketing can be, and the beauty of engaging with people more from that perspective. So then the question is, okay, well, how do we convert? Now, what we have, what a lot of people think that we do is just maybe free to play games. Obviously, we're a data company building data profiles, but we also focus on that inflection point from free to play to real money. And then here's a great example of how we do that. The free to play game has been played. It was a pick six, and this is in a legal jurisdiction. And here we offer, this player the ability to bet on their prediction. We are integrated with, with Canby, with SB Tech, and talking to the other operators. But because of our pretty deep understanding of the the technology, we're able to integrate and pre-populate that bet slip, so that all you have to do from that bet on this prediction is enter an amount if you're signed in, and you can place that bet. So we are always working on those types of conversions, from free to play to real money, where markets are that we are, that we're working on behalf of our clients for. Here's another example of us doing that with Bet America, here in New Jersey, where played up a free-to-play game, major picks, and we offer that button and that ability to convert that into real money. SB Tech is the underlying software at Bet America. So then it's about retaining and acquiring, and maybe even sometimes re-engaging, and that's this from an operator's perspective is really important. There's a few ways that we look at this, and before I go into too much detail around this particular slide, I was in Biloxi and at the Southern Gaming Summit, and there were GMs of casinos that were saying that they were getting 50 or 60% of their database to come in and bet on sports. And in Mississippi there isn't a mobile app yet, so these people are walking in and doing that. So there is what casinos are understanding is that there is actually a higher crossover between some of the entertainment that they provide on the casino floor and sports betting. And it's really about how do you sometimes re-engage or retain some of those customers that are table players or sitting on a database that you've really only ever talked to them about casino games. Here's an opportunity for you to fold sports into the mix and to start them in the top of that funnel for sports betting. So it's that re-engagement and really targeting those players. Like I said, also the VIPs are very valuable inside of those land-based casinos as well, and offering them a VIP type of prize and a type of game is just another way to re-engage or to engage with those VIP players that really do make up a large chunk of your net revenues as a casino. And it's really all about personalization. So we talked about building the personas. What we do at Chalkline is if somebody comes to us and we start from scratch, we've got some sensible defaults. Like I said, we've taken 4 million picks, and we've got a pretty good understanding about the regionalization of what sports are popular and what teams are popular. But we start with that sensible default. But as we start to for people to engage with us and play the games, it's about understanding them and then turning that data into personalized advertising and more games that are a little more relevant to them. Yeah, so what's the new player perspective, and I'm going to get Jason to come in here real quickly, but I think when we look at the new customer, the American Gaming Association has has said that there's going to be quite a few new customers, and this picture I think adequately identifies how how intimidating it can be. Lots of numbers, lots of what does minus 110 mean, and what does plus 220 mean. And that's one of the challenges I think that a lot of operators are talking about 12 months on, and maybe 5 or 6 months after they've launched, is how do you get people to engage? They love sports, they're passionate about sports, they want to do it, but sometimes it's just a little too intimidating for them because of some scenarios like this, and they'll go to Nevada, and Nevada is really geared around a more advanced sports bettor. Hand out sheets like this where it's just names and data and numbers, and what does 863 mean versus minus 120 or plus 3000. And this is some of the challenges that exist out there right now with the vanilla products that we're seeing in the marketplace right now. Jay, maybe you just want to share a little bit about your side of this particular perspective and having been in the industry for 25 years.
Yeah, definitely. This Bet365 slide is my favorite. As an operator and having built software in the sports betting industry for a long time, this was always the gold standard for me. It was more complexity, more products. You're seeing so much of it now with things like Cash Out and Build a Bet, all of it targeted at the top end of the market, and then struggling to acquire new customers. And it's no surprise. I've definitely learned over the last 3 years with free-to-play games and being part of Chalkline and experiences with all our customers that experienced operators targeting a site like Bet365 are just cutting out all those casual or first-time sports bettors who have no idea where to go when they land on a page like this.
Excellent. Here's another example of Bovada, which is an offshore book here, and that's sometimes used here in the United States. And again, pretty can be daunting and intimidating for customers. So this is what we focus on. We provide those free-to-play games, and we're trying to really give those players what they want to convert them to real money. Again, the American Gaming Association talks about a core group of 33 million Americans, but the sports betting opportunity is really, they're estimating it at 91 million Americans, which is a lot of first-time bettors and a lot of people that probably just need, a slightly different take than what is being provided in Europe and what we're seeing here in the United States so far. here's an example, and this is FanDuel, but I do know that there are operators in Mississippi, and here I'm going to hone in on the 6 kiosks. The kiosks are really popular in Mississippi, and the reason for that is that when they do some testing and they talk to the customers, it allows them the ability to maybe not look so foolish or sound so foolish to a teller, and so they get to sit in front of a kiosk and figure that out. One of the sportsbook operators called them campers, but it really gives them 2 or 3 minutes or 4 minutes just to play around with the odds, and figure out what it is they want to bet on in a pretty in their own personal space, rather than having to do that with a teller. And so, I think we're going to see a whole lot more kiosks in the casinos, and it's for that very reason that there's a lot of first-time bettors, and how can sportsbooks start to convert those people that want to be engaged with great engagement tools that don't intimidate them. So yeah, here's an example of our redesign that we're doing for Bet America. Again, really easy and simple to use and engage with. You can pick the correct score, big buttons. Certainly educates people when you look at odds, and as you go up and down those scores, the odds change. But it's a really friendly mobile experience, and it doesn't look quite like a traditional sports book. And another example is just how do you convert then those free to play opportunities into a bet. And on the left hand side is a really good example of those events and those markets, with a nice little bet tag there beside it. And then in the middle we get a lot of feedback about just simple gamification and how creating leaderboards and making it fun. And so if you've got a season-long event, NFL season or college football season, or 4 days of golf, how do you create that leaderboard and gamify their experience a bit and provide them with some some points and some potential for loyalty. But then also on the right hand side, what are some of those things that we're trying to update, where they are on the leaderboard, what position they are, and also just identifying opportunities to communicate with them in a slightly different way than maybe just pushing them straight into one of the more intimidating sportsbook experiences. So that wraps up the webinar. I would love to hear questions and comments from from everybody out there that about the conversion of free to play to real money.
So we have one question, Daniel and Jason, and that the first question is, what is the biggest surprise 1 year later after the Supreme Court overturned the federal ban on sports betting?
I would say the biggest surprise for me has been, the American Gaming Association was really lobbying around bringing sports betting out of the dark and into the light, and the challenge I think that we face 12 months on is that there's just not an awful that yes, sports betting is legal in these states, but we're not comparing apples with apples, with offshore books and a product that is similar. So it's only land-based, and it just doesn't feel like that the states are comfortable enough yet with mobile, and they'll get there. But the AGA was really pushing for there to be like for like comparisons for the products that get legalized in America, to compete with that offshore, and that's been a pretty big surprise. But having said that, though, there's $1 billion a month that's getting wagered in the United States, across all states, and I think it was January was the inflection point where there was more betting that was happening outside of Nevada than inside Nevada, and those are really positive positive surprises.
One general question here, which is about which conversion tools work best for real money games in regulated markets?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I think, I think what we've seen in the past, and if we look at Europe, that there have been operators that have just simply re kept the UI and UX of a sports book and simply offered that for free. And so there wasn't an awful lot of difference in the UI and UX. It looked exactly like a normal sports book, except it was not for real money. And I think that necessarily hasn't been too successful because the first time sports bettor is really probably needs a slightly different engagement, and that's and so the free to play games for me are really good, but it's really how you deliver those free to play games and provide that provide that entertainment to them.
Yeah, for me, it's about lowering all the hurdles. So as I said on the Bet365 screen, that's a whole bunch of hurdles or one massive hurdle for a new player to get over. Whereas introducing free-to-play games first means they can play a simple sports betting game without completing a sign up, without making a deposit. Then the trick is to offer them something very similar to the free play sports betting game, a jackpot game where they can spend $1, maybe win $10,000 if they get everything right. But it's effectively the same concept and the same feel as the free to play sports betting game, but you've got them to sign up and deposit $1. Beyond that, they'll move into the more complicated forms of sports betting.
Thanks. Got two more questions here. Number one is, how many states will have regulated sports betting by the end of 2019?
So I have been on record. My over and under is 19 and a half. That feels really good right now, but it'll probably, yeah, I think that there's going to be quite a few that have seen states like Tennessee went mobile only. And that just feels like an accelerator for the states around it. GeoComply have that great slide where 50% of all the wagers in New Jersey are on the border, and I feels like Tennessee is probably going to extract sports betting dollars out of the surrounding states. So, as Indiana, Iowa, goes online as well, it feels like there's probably going to be a little bit more impetus for states that have been there or thereabouts from a a legal perspective to legislate sports betting. So I'm probably gonna bet the over 2020 or over.
And the last question relates specifically to that, to the geolocation comment that you just made, Daniel, which is how does current technology, how does that impact certainly free to play, but then also real money when it comes to mobile gaming, and are there concerns that existing technologies are not solid enough or enforceable enough to ensure that the bettor is where they say they are?
Right. So I think that from a real money gaming, you can kind of sign up to any of these sites from anywhere. It's really not you don't really ping ping on the geolocation until you try and place that wager, and that's I want to say it's probably 99.5% of the time people are getting are appropriately located. But if we go to the precursor of that, which is what we do, we offer the ability for clients and customers to ask for state locations. We pick up IP addresses, which isn't entirely it's not entirely foolproof, but just to get an understanding of where everybody is. And I think we've learned a lot from our customers who thought that they were in particular locations, or predominantly in particular locations, and they had a much wider kind of buckshot in regionalized, and sometimes out of the state that they were that they were trying to target. So I think that the tech for the real money is pretty good, and there's going to be, I think, feels like there's going to be quite a bit of competition in that particular space because it's a very valuable and enforceable tool for these states. But the free to play is an opportunity for you to start to understand, where people are and get them to, to identify their state.
Great. And that wraps us up for today. We are fully at time. So just about Chalkline, we are North America's leading provider of free-to-play sports betting games. We are a data company, like Daniel and Jason both said, and we build free-to-play games for customer acquisition and retention. We are an approved gaming vendor and in the state of New Jersey and Pennsylvania. So again, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll touch base next month on the third Thursday. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.